Today I'm just going to do a quick overview of multimodal behavior therapy. Multimodal behavior therapy, and introduce you to just the basic acronym called Basic ID, which was invented by Arnold Lazarus in 1971. He had been doing research in various forms of therapy, and he is the one who actually coined the phrase behavioral therapy. And multimodal behavior therapy is a subset of cognitive behavior theory. Basically, Lazarus thought of human beings as biological entities that think, feel, act, sense, imagine, and interact. And because all of these things happen not in the abstract on their own, but as a complex whole, then the therapy ought to involve all of those things. Those who make use of multimodal behavior therapy are encouraged to think in terms of their specific patient's needs and not just follow a set pattern of techniques. They're not to go get the playbook for this particular form of therapy and say, okay, step one, we do this, step two, we do that. But to look at this person and say, look, you are a being, a biological being that does all of these things, and I need to tailor my therapy to you and all of these areas and as they interact. And so basically by remembering that most of people's problems fall into the interaction of these 7 things here, this basic ID, you keep those in mind while you deal with the person and frame your therapy to help them. Anyway, without going into all the ins and outs of multimodal behavior therapy, I just want to help you remember basic idea, because this is the one concrete thing in this form of therapy that you always come back to. And if you can remember what basic ID stands for, those are the areas that you're constantly hitting and trying to mesh together in this form of therapy. So basic ID is the acronym that you remember, and then you need to remember what each letter stands for. So B in basic stands for behavior. A, affect, your affections, feelings. C, sensation. You are a person who has sensory input coming in through your various 5 senses. So I, imagery. Here we're thinking of the imagination. C, cognition or thinking. I, interpersonal relationships. And then finally D, drugs and biology. So you are a biological being that acts and feels and senses and imagines and thinks and interacts. And some things affect you on the biological level. Some things are interacting with your behavior, with the way you feel, with the way you receive information about the world, with the way you imagine things, with the way you think, with the way you interact with others. If you remember these basic 7 things here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these basic 7 things here, then you use that as the basis or the springboard to tailor individually a helping plan or a therapy plan for the patient. So the acronym Basic ID under multimodal behavior therapy: behavior, affect, sensation, imagery, cognition, interpersonal relationships, drugs / biology. These are the 7 basic areas that make up a human being, and they all interconnect, interlocking webs of mutual reciprocity, if you will. Say that 3 times fast. Interlocking webs of mutual reciprocity. Everything connects to everything else. So you don't just abstract one and say, if I can correct the way you think, everything else will come into line. But I'm a thinking being who also feels, who also imagines, who also senses, who also acts, who also interacts, who also has a particular level of health and things like that. So they keep all of these connected to one another, realizing that they interrelate to one another, and there's mutual feedback between them. By keeping those things at the heart, then you craft an individual plan for that particular person to try to help them. This is a subset of cognitive behavior therapy invented by Arnold Lazarus in 1971. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about multimodal behavior therapy and things related to it, underneath this video you'll find a link. If you'll click on that link, it'll take you to the website that has that related information. And while you're on that site, you'll also find a link to an ebook that's ready for immediate download.